What's going on, everyone? My name is Benjamin Nowak, and I want to thank you guys for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. Now, this is another video in my smallmouth series, which I've so far covered smallmouth movements from summer to fall transition. We've talked about reaction baits for fall smallmouth, but one thing we haven't touched on is finesse baits to catch smallmouth bass. Now, although I've been talking about smallmouth during the fall quite a bit, these finesse baits will work all year long, no matter where you're fishing. When things get tough, you can pick up some of these finesse baits and hopefully get a couple extra or a couple really big bites. And because as much as I want to say I can go through a crankbait or a swim bait or a jerk bait or something all year long and catch smallmouth, the fact of the matter is things are going to get tough. You're going to have to downsize. You're going to have to go to light line. And sometimes you might draw the biggest fish of your life on a finesse bait. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of these smallmouth series videos, I'm going to put them into a playlist, and I'll have them linked up here in the corner for you so you guys can check out that whole series if you want to go check it out or have missed either of those other videos that I've posted. Now, I don't want to talk too much about tube fishing and drop shot fishing because I've already done full videos dedicated to both of those techniques. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave those linked in the description, and I'm just going to talk about some unique new products or new baits that I've been playing with to go out and trigger some big bites. So if you guys want to check out anything about tube fishing or drop shot fishing, I'll have a link in the description. You guys can go click on it, check it out, separate from this video. But we're going to start with some new drop shot baits that I've been playing with. And the first one is the Berkley MaxEnt Flatworm. Now, this is a bait that I've been playing with over the past month. I guess since last year I played with it a little bit in the fall, but it's really gotten a lot of play in my tackle box the past month. And it's just a smaller profile drop shot bait. Has a flat underside, has a kind of minnow-esque profile, sort of a small dream shot-esque profile, and it has a lot of drawing power. And smallmouth, as opposed to largemouth, fish primarily by sight and by smell or taste. And the power bait scent has a ton of smell. So I think that's why this bait gets so many bites and gets so many big bites, is because you can trick those fish into biting it. The colors are pretty normal. This is the Mango Magic color, imitates a ton of gobies as well as perch, but they're not really anything special, to be honest. I think the special power of this bait lies in the MaxEnt. So as good as this is for a drop shot worm, this is also really good on the back of a Ned rig. You just basically pinch off just a slight part of that head there, you rig it on the back of a Ned rig. One thing I like is the way that tapers down, it actually will move and wiggle and almost swim as you pull this bait through the water. So that's the way my buddy Josh was fishing it, and he kind of made me a believer. But in the video you guys are going to see in a couple days, and Friday, you're going to watch him fishing this bait. Has some kick, has some movement. And we actually caught a fish that had a perch in its throat, and it looked very similar to the entire profile of the perch. The next bait is something that I go to when I need to draw a bite and things get tough, whether I'm fishing a pressured body of water or when things start to slick off, and that is the dual Realice VTail Shad in the 3-inch. Now, the 3-inch is a relatively small profile bait. It doesn't have a ton of action, but what I like about this bait is that you can just basically dead stick it underwater, and as you can see, even when you're not trying to move, that tail has a shimmy to it. So my favorite way to fish this is nose hook it, cast it out there, flip it out there to your target, and just either hold it there or slowly drag it. Don't use a lot of rod action because that kind of defeats the purpose of having a super finesse drop shot bait. I like to flip it out there and just slowly pull it back to me, or just dead stick it in front of their face, because that's when I found the most success with this bait. And one thing that's really cool or unique is it has a V'd out or hole shaped profile, and on the bottom of this bait, on the underside of this bait, it has some salt in it, some micro salt, and that's going to help the bait stay keeled out, so it's not going to have a lot of roll or wiggle. It's basically just going to like dead stick and kind of twitch slowly in front of the fish's face. That's what's going to draw a lot of those bites. So the Duo Realice VTail Shad in the 3-inch, and this is the Moby color, M-O-E-B-I, has been a really effective bait when the water slicks off and gets really calm, or I'm fishing a pressure body of water and need to downsize. This is something that I've been going to. And now this next bait is something that I didn't understand the power of until I went out and fished it a couple times this past week, and that is the 13 Fishing Vertigo Minnow. Now, the Vertigo Minnow is a little bit larger size profile than either of the other baits I just showed you. But what makes it so unique is the fact that it has a tiny boot tail on the back of the bait. So if you look at the bait, it has this small little boot tail, What this does is gives this bait a kicking action on the back of your drop shot. That's something that not a ton of other drop shot baits have. You have the Haze Dong Shad by Megabass, and unless you're drop shotting like a Kitech Swing M Impact or a small swim bait, not many drop shot baits actually have a little tail on the back. And what this does is when you're fishing current areas, whether you're on the Great Lakes or whether you're on rivers or river mouths, it's going to actually give this bait a swimming profile. If you're not fishing current areas, what you can do to get that same kicking action, flip it past your target, cast it past your target, and drag it back. And when you're dragging that bait back to your target, this tail is going to kick. It's going to look like a small minnow swimming just really naturally and slowly through the middle of the water. That's what's going to trigger a lot of bites. I think that's why this bait is so effective. I have it in 2 different colors. This is called Mojito. It's basically a black back with smoke and blue bottom. And then the color I showed you guys was Mud Skipper. Has a brown back, a smoke belly with a little bit of gold flake. And that's what I really liked for imitating shiners, imitating a little walleye, juvenile walleye, or imitating the forage up here in the Midwest. The Mud Skipper minnow has been the color that I found the most success with. So those are 3 of the drop shot baits I wanted to show you guys. Those are 3 that I've been playing with and developed some confidence in recently that I thought were a little bit more unique. Now we're going to get talking about some drop shot terminal tackle that I've been playing with, and really one piece of drop shot terminal tackle, and that is the Owner Sniper Finesse hook. This is a hook I wanted to try, but had so much success with the VMC Nico hook I didn't really have a reason to. But I got to pick some up recently, and I really like this hook. If you can see, it's got an incredibly large offset hook point that's going to help those fish stay pinned. And I think that's one of the keys to these Nico style hooks is the offset hook point. With that offset hook point, when those fish get it in their mouth, it kind of goes in at an angle and turns, and it makes it incredibly hard for these fish to throw the hook. And one thing that I like about the Owner Sniper Finesse hook over the VMC Nico hook is it's very stout. It's a thicker gauge wire hook. It's super strong. You can't flex it, versus that Nico hook is a very light wire hook. What I also like is it's coated with that Owner Jungle kind of coating. It's a Teflon coating, so it's very slick. So it doesn't take a lot of hook setting power to get those fish pinned on this. And I haven't had any issues with fish coming off. Now this is the 1/0 size. So when I went to purchase these, I was going to purchase them based on the size VMC Nico hooks I buy, which is number 2. Do not do that. If you use a size number 2 Nico hook, buy a size 1/0 Owner Sniper Finesse hook. It's almost the same size, just maybe a 1/16 of an inch shorter. Size 1/0 is the size that I go with, and this is the size I have confidence in. Now we're going to get into some tube fishing. We're not going to talk too much about tubes. Like I said, I have that full video for you guys. I'm just going to reiterate the colors. I fish almost exclusively Mismo or Crunchers tubes. This is the Shiz color. The Shiz is my go-to anytime I'm fishing Great Lakes or dirtier water. It's basically a dark green pumpkin, some eggshell flake, purple and orange. And I really like that color when I'm fishing around gobies. And then when I get to really clean bodies of water, like glacial style bodies of water, I take this smoke cucumber with a little bit of purple flake. Imitates perch, imitates a variety of different bait fish. Catches a lot of big fish for me. So either the Shiz or this smoke cucumber purple flake from Mismo or Crunchers. Now, this is a northern bait. Mismo and Crunchers are from the north. Mismo's more nationwide, but they're from the same company. So if you can't get your hands on those, I pulled out some KVD coffee tubes that I like. If you can't fish the cucumber smoke, I like the KVD kick color. And if you can't fish the Shiz, I like the Magic Goby color. They're similar colors and profiles to the Mismo tubes, but they're in a more accessible format, right? Striking you can get pretty much everywhere. And then the tube heads that I've been throwing are the Bite Me Big Dude heads. I like these because when I fish around rock, which is where I'm primarily fishing tubes, that big head is going to come through the rocks a lot better than your traditional tube head. A lot of times on the Great Lakes, you'll have issues with snagging tubes. The reason you're doing that is because that head on a standard tube is snagging or driving your bait into the rocks. I like to bite me big dude head because it's going to come through those rocks a little bit better. And I'm primarily fishing a 3/8 or a 1/4 ounce tube head. So bite me big dude head, and 3/8 or a 1/4 ounce is the size that I'm going with. Now we're going to start talking about some newer style baits. And the first one is the Ned Rig. The Ned Rig isn't ultra new, but I want to share with you guys a couple unique baits that I've been throwing. The first one is the ZMan Ticklers. Now, ZMan just released the Ticklers at the Classic, but Monster Bass got some Ticklers as an exclusive bait for the box prior to ZMan releasing them. Now, the Ticklers is essentially a shortened down hula stick. When I fish a Ned Rig, as much as a lot of people want absolutely zero action with your standard Ned Rig bait, I like something that has a little bit of movement to it. And so the Ticklers on the back of a Ned Rig is going to have just enough movement to give me confidence that this bait is doing something down there and is going to catch me a big fish. Now this is the deal color, and it's a very good goby imitator. It can also be used to imitate a variety of different bait fish with that darker green pumpkin back and then that pearlescent white belly. Looks like gobies, looks like perch, looks like a variety of bait fish. No matter where you're fishing it, the deal is a really solid color. And another one I just started playing with is the X-Zone Lures Ned Zone. The Ned Zone, like the Ticklers, actually has a lot of movement, all because of this tail. And the reason that tail with the bulb on the end does something for me is because instead of a bait just having no movement or action, that little bit of bigger area will move water and actually causes this bait to shimmy. So when you reel this bait or when you hold this bait still, that little tail has this little shimmy as water flows around it. Another one, if you guys want a crossover bait, the Power Bait MaxEnt Flatworm is a bait that I've also developed some confidence in the back of a Ned Rig. Now what head have I been throwing? There's a bunch of heads on the market. One that I really like is the Berkley Fusion Half Head. But another one that I started playing with this season is the Outcast Perfect Net Head. Now this is designed by Josh Douglas. It has that standard wire keeper that keeps baits pinned. It's really perfect for keeping ZMan plastics pinned. If you guys can see that, because they hook onto this little keeper and they hold on there. And it comes with a relatively stout, sharp hook. I believe it's a Gamakatsu hook. I like to fish the 3/16 ounce size. I'm fishing the Great Lakes, so I'm fishing a lot of bigger water, a lot of water with bigger waves. That's why I like to go with a little bit heavier Ned head, like a 1/4 or 3/16 ounce. But if you're fishing shallow water, or you're fishing areas where you don't have a lot of current or a lot of wind or a lot of waves, you can go down to lighter sizes. I personally, though, prefer that 3/16 ounce. I like to have contact with that bait. Now we're going to get into some sneakier style of baits. And we're going to start with one that's not super sneaky, has become really popular in the past couple of years, but still not many people fish or know about, and that is the Duo Realice Spy Bait and the Duo Realice Spin Bait Alpha. Both of these baits are really solid baits when fish are feeding on bait fish up off the bottom. And the way that I like to take these baits and fish them is on extremely light line, make a very long cast, and what's special about these baits is they sink about 1 foot a second. So when you cast this bait out, if you know the fish are holding them like 12 foot, cast it out, count down to 10, and just slowly start turning the handle on this bait. And it has these props that spin. And these props spin and they cause the body to have what's called a listing action, where it starts to roll back and forth slightly, and it looks like a little minnow coming through the water. It also creates this trail off the back of the bait that allows fish to key in, dial in on that bait, and come up and get it. It's a super finesse profile, and it works best when it's basically flat calm. So when you're out there catching fish and you're smashing them really good in the morning, and then all of a sudden you get that post-run out condition where it's super flat calm, high bluebird skies, then you pick up the spin bait, and this is the G-Fix 80. Cast it out and you just super slowly reel it for those suspended fish. This is a way to get a couple extra bites in the middle of the day. My favorite colors are this Great Lakes Edition Perch or the Morning Dawn colors. If you're fishing around any sort of bait fish, try to match the bait fish that you're fishing around And typically up here on the Great Lakes it's perch, or it's a variety of a shiner or an alewife or something. Now this year at the Classic, or at Outcast I believe, they just released the Spinbait Alpha. Now compared to the 80 G-Fix model, it has a shorter and bigger body. It's a 72 millimeter body, but it's fatter. So this is gonna work more effectively if you're fishing around bigger bait fish. If you guys are fishing around shad, or you're fishing around bluegill, or you're fishing around a variety of different bait fish, you have this bigger profile bait. You can throw this on a bait caster. It's a 1/2 ounce, and it's gonna basically have the same action. It's gonna still be effective in those super bluebird sky, slick, calm days, but because it's a bigger profile, it's gonna have a little bit more listing action. It can draw fish from a little bit further away. So it kind of just adds a new element to the spinbait arsenal. We're going to talk about rod, reel, and line setup for the spinbait here in just a little bit, but those are the 2 baits that I recommend picking up. This is a bait here that I actually learned about from my man Kobe Pellerito and Tom Westoff, and that is the Okashira Spinhead. And what it is, it's a small swimbait style head with a spinning blade. And that blade moves. Well, if you look at this blade, it actually has one bigger prop and one smaller prop. That's going to give this bait, similar to that spy bait, a listing action, rolling back and forth. And it's also very good for when things get really tough. This is made by Megabass. This is 1/8 ounce. So it's a relatively lightweight. And what you're going to do is you're going to put a small swim bait on the back of that. I have been using a variety of different swim baits, a couple different swim baits. And the first one is the Rains, what is this? The Rains Rock Vibe Shad, and this is in the 3 1/4 inch size. You want a small body swim bait on the back of that bait. You do not want to overpower this Okashira head with a big swim bait. So the Rains Rock Vibe has a small profile on the back of this, and it works perfectly when things get tough. Another really popular favorite on the back of that Okashira head is the Megabass Spark Shad in the 3 inch size, I do believe. And this is probably the most popular bait on the back of there. You just don't want something to interfere with that prop, and you don't want something that has a ton of kick or movement to it, because you're basically defeating the purpose of that Okashira Spinhead. And now finally we're going to talk about one of my best kept secrets over the past 2 years. And this is something that has caught me fish on the Great Lakes, has caught me fish on inland lakes, has caught me fish on glacial style bodies of water all year long, spring, summer, winter, fall. This is a technique that just flat out catches fish, and that is the Frenzy Baits Whack-A-Sack rig. Now this is a unique take on the Jika rig, which has a weight underneath the hook, and the hook moves along that weight. Now what makes this so unique is it's a very small profile. This is 3/16 of an ounce with a 1/0 octopus style hook, and you're going to take one of your drop shot style plastics, hang it off the back, and it will start to stand up. It has freedom of movement from that weight, so it can pivot anywhere away from that weight, and it just draws a lot of fish. Super finesse profile. And when they don't want to eat a Ned rig, or they've seen a Ned rig 100 times, and they've seen a drop shot 100 times, and they've seen all these other baits, you can pick up the Frenzy Baits Whack-A-Sack and catch some fish. So I've talked about all the baits. Now let's kind of get into the setups and I'm throwing some of these on. And an all-around awesome rod that I've been using almost exclusively for drop shotting and throwing a blade bait over the past year is the Arc Tharp Series 7-foot Meter Man rod. What I like about this rod is the action on it. They call it an extra fast action, but it has a slow enough tip where you're not pulling the hook out of fish. So the Arc Meter Man Tharp Series rod is awesome as an all-around rod, whether you're throwing a tube, a drop shot, a Ned rig. If you just need one spinning rod, Arc Tharp Series is a great selection. I've been using the Lew's Tournament Lew's Team Lew's Custom 3,000 size reel, 15-pound test, Power Pro Vermilion Red Braid to 8-pound fluorocarbon line for basically all of those techniques. And it's just a really good rod, whether you're blade baiting or whatever you're doing. This is my go-to spinning rod at the moment. But for fishing a spy bait or for fishing that Okashira head on lighter line, I'm going with a little bit longer rod, a little bit softer rod, and something that handles lighter line more effectively. Now this is the Major Craft Nano Ace. It's 7'3", and they consider it a medium fast action. But what's odd about they call it a medium extra fast action. But what's weird about their determination on the power and the rating is how far down the rod that this bends. So if you guys can see that right there, it's more of what I would consider a moderate or a moderate fast action. What that means is it bends further down the blank of the rod. You're going to want something like that, especially when you're spy baiting or throwing a small okra shear head, so you don't bend out the hooks or pull the hooks on those fish. I like it because it has a lot of bend. It's a longer rod, 7'3", and you don't really have all the power that you have in a shorter medium rod. Now the reel that I'm pairing with this is the Daiwa Exceller LT. Sorry, I don't fish, or I don't keep too much track of this reel. Daiwa Exceller LT. It's a larger size, 3000 size reel, but it's a super slow gear ratio. It's only a 5:1 gear ratio. The reason I like that slower gear ratio is because you want to fish these baits super slowly. When you're fishing these tiny finesse baits that have props in front of them, one thing you do not want to do is use too heavy a line. The heavier line that you put in front of this prop, the less action or less prop action that bait is going to have. So if you go to an 8-pound test line, your bait is not going to have the same listing action or the same shimmy on the fall as it would with a lighter line. The same is held true for the Megabass Okra Shear Head. So that's why I like to run that 10-pound braid to the 5-pound fluorocarbon. That's going to allow you to cast it further, those light baits, but it's also going to allow that bait to have a lot more action and trigger a lot more bites. This is something that took me a lot of time to get used to, is fishing that lighter line. And one piece of advice that I have for you guys, go with a lighter, longer rod, but also use a longer leader. So instead of tying like a 6-foot leader, tie a 30-foot leader. So a super long leader that's going to help the line absorb the shock of the hook set, but also don't set the hook hard. When you're fishing this light line and those light hooks, you don't have to jack those fish like you would with the jig or a spinnerbait or a crankbait. You just kind of lean into them, let the rod do the action, pull into that hook, and that hook will penetrate in that fish's mouth. So instead of setting the hook really hard, just kind of lean into those fish. Those fish will load up, and a lot of times smallmouth, they hit that bait and want to pull back. They'll load up on this small hook, and you'll be able to land a lot more fish more effectively. Not have to worry about fishing such a light line or breaking fish off, and you'll be more effective. So if you guys enjoy these smallmouth series videos, I can keep doing them. We can talk about a variety of different topics. So let me know in the comment section below. Also hit that thumbs up button because it lets me know that you guys are enjoying this style of content. Also, if you're not already, please hit that subscribe button. It means the world to me. And hit that notification bell because it'll let you know when I post more videos just like this one. Anyways, I want to thank you guys for watching. And as always, take care of tight lines. God bless. Pursue passion.